Hey everybody, welcome to this week's podcast. What else is new with Tim Graves? And I want to thank you guys for being part of our podcast. And again, I hope you guys are getting a lot of these and enjoying these, and the ones that Todd and I do. And this week I say a special guest. I have a guest. So I'll say a special guest. I have a guest, James Bell's with me this week, and you guys, James has been with me before, but James this week is James. His role, he's got really two big roles. So I say two big roles, really three big roles with Graves Golf. Well, he's a jack of all trades with Graves Golf, but his big roles with Graves Golf are primarily, number one, he's the school director, school manager of Graves Golf. So he runs all the 3-day schools, the 5-day schools, especially schools. So he is the school manager. So I always like to say, when you're enjoying these schools and have a great time, James is the one to thank for this. But it really is when you have the problems with the school, James is the one to come to with the schools. But he's a school manager, school director of everything we do at Graves Golf. 3-day, 5-day premier schools, specialty schools, and so on. Second thing he does is he runs the trade in, trade up program. So when I'm taking clubs and custom clubs in or selling custom clubs, he's managing the trade in portion of that. We've talked about that before. And then third thing he does, obviously, is an instructor in the field. I mean, he goes out and instructs, in fits in the field and so on. He's been a master fitter for years, and he's been an instructor with us now for years. But I say jack of all trades. There's a lot of other stuff in there, but we'll leave those to the side.
That's a pretty good list.
Yeah, that's a good list to start. Anyway, so very important with Graves Golf, obviously. But in this podcast, I want to talk to James about his schools. And the reason I bring him in, and I brought him in this morning, was because this time of year, we tend to have a lot of people sign up for schools. In fact, we start filling up the fall and the winter. They start selling out. And then we start really hitting the spring schedule hard. And we literally will have, 15, 20, 25 schools on there, even before the specialty schools. And we'll have, 250, 300 or more spots in those schools. And James is one of the guys that answers the phone, and he has ads get put out in the schools, but he really answers the phone, okay, for these schools. And I wanted James to come in this morning because I think there's some common questions we get about the schools, okay? But more importantly is I talk to a lot of students. I've been doing this for almost 25 years. And I'm the one with Todd that established the schools with Graves Golf, obviously. No one else did this. And I know that typically when students sign up for schools, there's some things that go through their head, or when they come to schools that go through their head. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Number one, guys, when they come to school, it's interesting. They'll come to like a 3-day or 5-day school for the first time, and they're so nervous that first day, it's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, it's like they're antsy or they're nervous, and they're nervous because two reasons. Number one, they think they're going to be the worst golfer at the school. Okay. And number two, they think they're going to be the oldest golfer at the school. Okay. It's interesting. It's funny because I'll interview guys or gals after the school, and I'll sit there and say, man, you sure opened up during the school, man. Looked like you were a nervous wreck that first day. And then all of a sudden, by the second, third, fourth day of a 5-day school, you're opened up, you're having fun, you're enjoying your experience, you're getting a lot of the school. But that first day was like trying to bend steel because you were so nervous. And that person always says, yeah, I thought I was going to be the worst golfer here. I think I might be one of the better golfers here. Or they'll say, I thought I'd be the oldest golfer here, and I realized I'm one of the youngest golfers here. So I want James to just talk about that a little bit, because he gets, I'm talking 20, 30, 40 calls a day. And that may be a small list of people asking these same questions. Am I right, James?
True.
So talk about it right now. When people call you on the phone, talk to you about schools, or when they come to schools, just kind of talk about that in general.
Okay.
Who comes to our schools? Go ahead.
It's funny because you look at the demographic that we target,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the typical, we look at the older retired person, male, female.
Right.
But they're getting younger. We've had a 14-year-old young lady who came to a 3-day school and a short game school. And I've had as old as a 96-year-old gentleman who had just came off of a stroke, was in a walker, and wanted this it was a bucket list item for him. And he wanted to come to the school. So if you take that age gap, you've got everyone in between. I think everyone's a beginner.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing to get through. Well, I'm an accomplished golfer. I've done this, I've done that. But you say you're all coming into the single plane swing.
Right.
So you're all beginners. So we tailor our schools for those people. And even the more accomplished players that are coming in that we've been with the single plane for a while, now we're tweaking where they are because we have that one-on-one time.
So before we get there, before we get there, and I like what you're doing there because I want to get to that topic too about how we can literally set up a school and we can have 18 people at the school, and we can have a person that's never held a golf club in their life or a person that's a scratch golfer at that school. Okay. And how we can manage their expectations. But we'll get back to that. Okay. Before that though, I like to talk about the demographic.
The fear. I think it's the individual fear.
Right.
I mean, you go in there, guys are coming in there, or people are coming with their ego going, I don't want to show up and I don't want to suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And they get out there, and I think the first thing we have to do, and we try to do with all the instructors at the schools, number one is we put everybody at ease and get them to understand that as instructors, we've seen almost everything. I won't say everything because there's still some surprises that show up, right? But our goal is to get you at ease, and we are your biggest advocates out there.
100%.
We're not sitting there at the school going, oh my God, did you see what Larry did the other day at the school? Right. Oh my God. No,
we may do that after, but
we would do it over lunch or over dinner afterwards. But no, our goal is to bring out the best in you and to make you feel good about yourself, get you relaxed. The biggest thing is getting you relaxed,
right? Because
then all of a sudden your brain stops trying to overthink everything. Your body tends to relax. You get to move a little bit better. And you become comfortable with not only the instructors being around you, but looking up and down the line and seeing the other 17 or 18 other students that are in the same boat that you're in.
Right.
They're in the same fears.
Right.
They're not want to stare at anybody. They're going, oh my God, please don't let me miss this shot.
Right. Right.
It's just, everyone comes in with the same thoughts.
So they won't be the oldest.
No.
They won't be the youngest. They won't be the worst. They won't be the best.
Nope.
So it's a mix of everything. Am I right? Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Okay. That's number one. And the interesting part of what we do is we're all working the same methodology, no matter where you're at. Whether it's the short game part of the school we're covering, whether it's a long game part of the school we're covering, whatever we're covering in the school, we're going to say methodology. Okay. So that's number one. So I know it's just human nature to be nervous going into something like that, but the quicker you can get over that and not fear it. Okay. Now, second thing I want you to describe is, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it's your staff. Okay. Yeah. I say it's my staff, but describe what your staff is like, because we have a lot of pride in our staff. I mean, we have a, we say a 4-to-1 ratio and, in a 3-day school, but it's more like a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 typically. And in a camp, it's always 2 to 3-to-1. I mean, so there's a lot of instructors.
We overload you with instructors.
100%. So, and information obviously, but we overloaded instructors. So you're always going to have 3, 4, 5 instructors, sometimes even more at a school. Describe your instructors, because it's one thing that's very interesting, because I will sit there and give that morning presentation, or Todd might, or you might give that morning presentation. I'm always like, we're a bunch of guys that want to have some fun. We make guys or gals. And we even have Shay now who will probably help us. And we've had lady instructors with us, but have some fun. It kind of explain that, what we mean by that.
You look at the age group of our instructors. We've got from late 20s all the way up to 70, mid 70s.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we cover the entire age range of who we're dealing with.
Right.
All of our instructors are experienced in the golf world. But the fun part is we've all gone through this transition. It's the exact same thing as all the students are going through. So we understand the frustrations. We understand, how we, even as instructors, want to make this happen faster for ourselves, and trying to convey the message that, just listen to us. If you slow down and work with us slowly through this process, we will get you there.
And I think that
we've all done.
And I think that was huge. And I love you brought that up, because I think that a lot of students forget this, or don't realize this, or miss this. Every one of our instructors was a golfer at one time, or a golfer through their life, meaning they came into our information as golfers prior. In other words, they were accomplished golfers. Some coming into some were more accomplished than others. Some were very accomplished. Some were, but they were all decent golfers. Okay. And then they made a change to single plane swing.
Yes.
Okay. So they went through this change, and now they're all good single plane golfers, because if not, they wouldn't be instructors. They wouldn't pass our information. They wouldn't pass our criteria. They would have faded out.
And they're all people persons.
Right. But they went through the process of the change. So when they're helping the student go through the process of the change, this is true experience that they have actually done themselves. And so when they're giving advice, hey, I would try this, I would do this, you need to look at this, look at that. It's things they have been through.
Yes.
And so when they're talking the talk and walking the walk, they've done it. And I think a lot of our students, I think probably the majority of our students lose that thought.
Perspective?
Yeah, I think they do, because nobody's born with a single plane swing. And one time we had one instructor who started with a single plane swing and is really, really small.
That's all he's known.
It's all he knew. And he's hence left us, go on another career path.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody sat there and started when they were a kid as a single plane swing. Yeah. No. And they were golfers and they started making changes to it. And so to get their advice is huge. And some of these guys made changes when they're in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the other fun part with everybody making the changes, everyone's been a little bit different.
Right.
And, Clay is going to talk to you from a perspective of being Clay's our older statesman, of course. And he went through his changes, felt different to his body than someone like
a Derek,
Oliver or Derek,
Ollie, yeah, right.
That are younger, right, that are going through this. So
100%.
There's a whole bunch of different feelings.
100%.
Their body mechanics are different,
right?
And each one of the instructors will sit down and, as we're working with the students, they will convey those different feelings, and one of them is going to resonate with that student, which makes it huge. We're all going to talk the same language. Right. We all talk the same fundamentals. We all talk. Everything is the same, but the words may be slightly different, and the feelings that we've gone through to get to where we are slightly different. Right. And so one of that is going to hit home base with that student. And I think that makes a huge difference.
And so the next topic I have for you is this. There's different ways to learn. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have the visual, we have we hear, we see, we feel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go. We hear, see, feel. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, this company is probably where it is because of the dramatic differences between Todd and me, the way we interpret things, the way we learn, and so on. I'm a very feel person. I'm feel.
Yep.
Todd is extremely visual. Okay. And he's he's got feel learning in him, but he's very visual and he's very, artistic kind of, and I'm more of a feel kind of person. Okay. That kind of issue. Okay. Describe that difference in our students, because I have a lot of pride in this. When we bring our staff out there, you're not stuck with one. So let's say you went out in the lesson, you had one person. That person might be a person who teaches by feel, but you're not a feel student.
Nope.
You're not going to mesh with that instructor.
Yeah, it's like you talk English and he's trying to learn in French.
100%. Whereas we tend to, and I see this at all the schools, and I still have a lot of pride in this. I'll see, you'll line up 10 students in a line at school, and all of a sudden you'll see by the second, third, maybe fourth day, you'll see that all of a sudden one of our instructors is taking a little bit more time with this student, or maybe a little more time with that student.
Yep.
It's because they tend to mesh with them.
Yes.
It's like maybe they're like they teach a little more
speak
feel.
my language.
There you go. Or they tend to teach a little bit more, like, maybe a little bit more dynamic, maybe a little more technical, and that person picks up on the technical. And so all of a sudden they tend to spend a little more time with them. And so it's not that a student's left out.
Nope.
It's just certain instructors tend to migrate to certain ones because I think one of the beauties of Graves Golf is we have instructors that teach all different levels. Like, I think Nick is more technical.
Nick is very technical.
Right. I'm a lot feel. I think that Clay is, what do you think Clay would be?
Clay is very point A to point B. He's very technical. He's very, you must do this first. He's the typical engineer.
Right.
A to go to B, go to C. Don't pass C because you haven't, D doesn't matter yet.
Right.
Go back to B.
What would you think Brad is?
Brad's more of a feel type.
I think I agree. I think Brad's a player. I think he
understands.
He's an accomplished player. I think he's a lot of feel. I think he's more. You're going to feel this. You can feel that when you hit this position. You feel more flex in this position.
I agree.
What do you think you are?
I think I'm a feel guy.
Yeah.
Because through my background is I've learned on my own. So I taught myself.
Right.
And I learned I would read a book and go, those fundamentals are slightly different than his.
Right.
So why?
Right.
Let's go try this.
Right.
So I'd go try something. I go, ooh, I don't like that. Doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel right. Doesn't look right. So I'll go, okay, it makes sense, but that's not for me.
Right.
And I'd bounce around from topic to topic and fundamental. But I think I'm more of a feel type player.
What do you think Trent is?
Trent's a very technical person.
I think Trent's visual because I think that's why he's so good at the video.
He is, but if you look at
Right.
the methodology when he's instructing,
Right.
he's very technical.
I agree.
And he's very smart.
But
technical.
he'll jump to that iPad so fast to show you. He wants to show you. He wants to show you because I will grab a student and say, try to feel this, try to feel that. Todd will grab a student and before he says one word to feel, he's grabbing the iPad.
There's the
saying,
iPad.
Here you go. Look at this. You know what I'm saying? And some people will look at the iPad like with their eyes crossed going, that's showing me nothing. And the next turn they'll go, we'll sit there for an hour on the iPad. So, that's the difference.
Yep.
Okay. So now, and one of the last things I want to talk about in this podcast though is, and this is what another thing that I think really kind of freaks people out, or what's a good word for it, is explain in a school, because I don't think unless people really experience this, how you can have a line of students out there. I would say a line, but they may be on the green putting, or they may be working on the chipping green, or maybe in the bunker working on the bunker practice, or maybe on the line you're working on the swing. How could you have a 14-year-old kid out there or a 10-year-old kid that just started golf, or is in a 7-year-old guy and a 50-year-old guy who are very accomplished players, and then another 40-year-old guy who just started golf, and then the 7-year-old's wife who's never played golf in her life and wants to get into it with them, and they can all be at the school, and they can all get at the same school, and they can all get a lot out of this school, because that really freaks people out. Like there's no you have a guy who's played golf for 40 years, who's a single-digit golfer, and he wants to get better, and he's sitting next to a lady who's never touched a golf club in her life.
Yeah, and it's holding it by the club head and trying to hit the hand.
Right, and hold the wrong end of the club, right?
Yeah.
Explain how they can both get a lot out of the school, because I think that really people don't understand this. Explain how that works.
Our methodology gives us we have a set of fundamentals. Doesn't matter what discipline you're, putting, chipping, pitching, full swing. Right. Those fundamentals are core. So we teach those core fundamentals. We're going to tell you why they're important. We're going to teach you how to practice and how to work with checkpoints while you're practicing. But the other key thing is we have enough individual time and enough instructors out there that we can assess where you are within that, and we tailor our individual time to you and where you are on that journey.
Love it.
So we can only, a brand new beginner who can barely stand there and hold the club, I'm not going to talk advanced swing mechanics with that individual one-on-one.
Right.
I'm going to, let's make sure that, you really understand why we're holding it a certain way, why we're standing a certain way. Whereas I'm going to take an accomplished player and say, okay, let's look a little different now on how you're moving.
Right. So
we tailor the individual instruction. And that's where I think the biggest difference comes down. We're sort of a cookie cutter.
Right.
And I hate to use the term cookie cutter, but we have all of those fundamentals there. But the individual time that gets spent with the student is different based on the individual.
And I think that leads to the other thing that's so critical in this, that is, I think we get a lot of praise for we get a lot of people because our methodology doesn't change, because it's the same model that we've been teaching for years and years, the Mo Norman, single plane golf swing. I don't care if it's putting, chipping, pitching, or just the full swing itself. Because it doesn't change, you could walk away and come back and we're still working on the same thing. It's not like we're teaching the swing of the day or the swing of the week or the swing of the month. And I just see this so often with other instruction out there, how things change. Hey, I saw something different on the Golf Channel. Now I'm going to go try that and see if it works for my students. No. Now, so, life happens. All of a sudden you're working your swing for a few months or a few years, whatever it is. All of a sudden you got to go away from golf for a while because you got to take care of a loved one. Or something happens or work gets in the way or family gets in the way. All of a sudden you come back a few years later and you realize, wow, I'm working on that same thing I was working on before.
This hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. Now, you may have changed. You may become less flexible, more flexible, whatever, whatever.
Older, slower, whatever.
100%. But the method is still the same. So we're throwing you back in the method and say, okay, here's where you are. So basically what you're saying is that no matter where you start, we're developing a starting point for you. We're saying this is your point you're at right now. Now this is how you move forward from there.
Yep.
And we do it in every aspect. I don't care, because we cover every part of the game in the schools. Yeah. In fact, a lot of people think, like even coming to one-day schools like a cram session. Because, you can't sit there and do a one-day school and say not have putting in it or chipping in it because they're so direct related to the full swing, number one. And number two, they're so directly related to your scoring, you've got to have some type of instruction.
You have to cover everything.
So the last thing on this is explain that. Explain what you just said, because you just said you got to cover everything. Explain, because we could literally have a golf school. Say we did a 3-day school.
Yep.
And we could very easily set up a 3-day school, and all you're doing is work on that full swing. So from the second you walk in to the second you leave, you work on the grip, the setup, and the stance, and the backswing for 3 full solid days. Why do we not do that? So if somebody called you right now and said, James, I only want to work in the full swing, and we get these calls.
Mhm.
I don't want to do any putting. I don't want to do any chipping. I don't want to do any pitching. All I want to do is work in that full swing. You need to set up an instruction for me that's all we're doing. What would you tell them? What would you?
I've covered, from a playing perspective, I've covered 20% of the golf game.
Yeah, good point. So majority of golf game you're not covering.
I'm not going to cover most of the game. And you're going to look really pretty on video, but you can't put the ball in the hole.
I like that. I like that.
And the other thing is getting away from just the mechanics of a golf swing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about how to get from point A to point B. We never talk about the playing side of it.
Well, that's true. But the other thing is that, and I think it's the people that need to realize out there. So many people have difficulty making swing changes because number one, they don't go slow enough. For number two, it's hard making swing changes.
Yep.
It's tough. But you can make changes in the short game
and you'll see immediate results.
Not in just scoring, but in the same changes in the full swing.
Yes.
Meaning, for example, majority of golfers don't have shaft lean in their putter.
True.
You create shaft lean in your putter, it'll carry over to your pitching, which will carry over to your full swing. And all of a sudden you get shaft lean in your irons. You can create a divot. You can create some loft in the club. You've created a divot the first time in your life because you worked on creating shaft lean in your putter.
And you've created compression onto a golf
ball. There you
go.
go. And distance and more
distance
spin.
And excitement.
Because you worked on your putting.
Absolutely.
And think about it. Somebody could putt all day long. I don't care if you're 90 years old, you can putt all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky if you can swing the club more than 10 or 15 minutes without getting tired.
True.
So I think it's the other thing people need to realize is that we work on a methodology in a model that is built from like the small thing up. And so when you're doing training, you start with the putting that goes into chipping, that goes into pitching, that works into the full swing. And that is huge.
That's the last slide I put up on the when I do my morning talk at the schools and we're setting expectations, all that. I said, here's your plan for the next 3 or 5 days.
Right.
I'm going to go from little swings to big swings.
I love that.
I'm going to start with you moving the putter. I want you to be able to control the shortest club in your bag.
Right.
And we're going to move it 6 inches.
Because it's interesting. The two things that freak people out the most is when I sit there and say this. Number one, I say, remember, putting is path, face, and speed. Path, face, and speed. But let me give you a secret. The driver is path, face, and speed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all that club knows is path. It
only knows 3 things.
It knows impact of the face. It knows how square the face is impact and how fast you're swinging it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, everybody goes, okay, I get that. But then I sit there and say, myself and everyone on my staff can watch you hit a putt they've never seen you before in your life. And they can tell you mistakes you're making with the driver, with your hybrids, with your irons. Those mistakes because of watching you putt. And they look at me like, you got to be crazy. And I'm like, no, because you're not getting that face square with the putter, won't be square with the driver.
Yeah.
You're casting the club with the putter, you're casting your driver. So, there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we're able to fix the small things will then eventually help fix the big things.
Yep.
And once they understand that, they realize how this whole progression works through a school. And that's huge.
Yeah.
So last thing, and then we'll end this podcast. But so somebody calls up right now and says, James, I'm thinking about coming to school or not. I'm trying to figure this out. I mean, yes, it's our average student comes from over 500 miles away. So it's a long way to travel in. Very few of our guys are local. We have great facilities across the country, but to get something in your backyard is probably not going to happen because there's just,
that's one of the questions I get a lot is, well, how come you're not in Sheboygan?
Yeah. Or
it's
Timbuktu,
wherever. Yeah. It's logistically, if you come to a school and you see the setup,
you're going to be crazy.
Then you understand why logistically this isn't just we show up. This is a road show.
We have trailers that come in with roadies that set it up. No, we literally do.
Yeah, it's the instructors of the roadies.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, how many times they've asked me to hire people to do that. No, it's crazy. It's a huge road show. It is huge. In fact, we have massive trailers that pull in with stuff for this, with equipment that run the show. Yeah. Yeah. But so if somebody says, why? So I'm traveling some distance. I'm paying a good chunk of change to come this. Okay. Tell me what am I going to get out of this thing? Number one, and how is it an advantage to me? How is this going to help me? What's the last thing you're going to tell them?
The first, I'm going to go to the first thing I talk about first. The biggest question I get is, do I come to a 3-day or 5-day?
Yeah. And
I go through, I'll tell you what's involved in the schools, but it comes down to economics and time. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to lie to you. It's, if you have the time and you have the wherewithal to come to a 5-day camp, you're going to get more out of it based on time. I have more time. My instructors have more time with you. You have more time to absorb the information.
Right.
So it's a time factor. yes, the 3-day school is fantastic. We're going to go through everything, and it can feel like a fire hose and a funnel.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to throw a lot of information at you.
Well, it's the
and to absorb
it's
is
the main reason Todd and I started 5-day schools. We would never dreamed of that, but we had some students come to us and saying, "Here's what happened. Came in the first day, I was a nervous wreck. Couldn't even hardly get over the nerves the first day. The second day, I kind of got over the nerves, and I started realizing what you guys were teaching, started making some sense. The third day, I started really getting it. But here's the problem: when I started really getting it, I'm hitting the door and I'm walking out.
Walking out the door.
How about a couple more days where I'm really starting to get it, and I can get it put on video, I can get some more individual time, I can get some more work,
more comfortable,
more comfortable. We've had guys that come to us and say, "Can you do a 7-day school, a 10-day school?" It's like, yeah, okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
But
my instructions would be a basket case.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
Can do it.
But that's why we did that, was because you really start getting it on, towards the end of the second day, third day, you start getting a little more comfortable. It's not getting it, you get more comfortable in the environment, in the situation, and the changes. And then you want a fourth and fifth day.
Yeah.
The other thing on that, and I love you brought that point up, I would love to have a nickel for every time somebody came to me and went to a 3-day school and they went to a 5-day school and said, "Man, I wish I would have started with that 5-day school. I wish I would started that 5-day school." Because of that very reason we just said.
Yeah.
They're both phenomenal. They're both great. We understand a time issue, money issue, travel
Absolutely.
issue. We understand that. But if I had a nickel for every time, it was incredible. It would be crazy on that.
I'm going to answer your question though. You asked me, what am I going to get out of the school?
Right.
We're going to give you an understanding, a very good understanding of all the disciplines involved in the single plane and how putting relates to chipping, relates to pitching, relates to the full swing. You're going to leave us with an understanding of how to practice. I think that is key.
Huge.
And then within that understanding of how to practice, it's what to look for. It's those checkpoints that we deal with of when I am practicing, what should I be looking for?
Right.
And then the last thing you get is an understanding of what we're doing when we come to video coaching. So that when you do put you do use your phone and record your whatever you're doing, whether it's a drill, whether it's a full swing, whatever that may be, you can look at that video and understand what we as coaches are looking for and how you can hopefully start to diagnose what you're looking at or understand what you're looking at.
I love that. And I think we'll end it here because, and I want to bring that up real quick because it's one of the first things I say. When I walk into a school, I was in a 3-day school, I say, "What's the most important day of these 3 days?" Or I walk into a 5-day school, I say, "What's the most important day of this 5 days?" And everybody says, the second day, the third day, and I always say, nope, the 4th day of a 3-day school and the 6th day of a 5-day school. Everybody kind of looks at me kind of weird, like, what? How come the 6th day of a 5-day school is the most important? I say, that's what we're training you for. We're trying to teach you to be your own best instructor. We're trying to teach you to take this information away. Our goal is not to give you a quick fix. Our goal is not to give you, a quick fix and you're hitting a good today and bad tomorrow. Our goal is to make you your own best self-instructor so that this will continue forever and ever and ever, and you'll get better and better and better throughout time. Because if you think about it, 99% of the time when these individuals practice, they're practicing on their own, they're practicing by themselves, and we're trying to set themselves up for that best situation when they're doing that. And that's what these schools are all about.
Right? Absolutely.
And have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Not be nervous.
I'm going to throw one last thing in. All the instructors that we have, none of them look at this as a paycheck.
Oh,
we do this because we care.
I like to hear that.
And yeah, it doesn't mean we don't need a prize.
Right.
But no, our instructors care. And you'll see that when we're working and when our instructors are working with the students, you actually see a genuine care for what that student is doing. And they want to see the improvement.
And that's one thing I'm very proud of in this is that for majority, in fact, I think most all of our instructors, in fact, I think you can say all now, was a second, third, fourth, fifth job. They've had other lives. I mean, you were in the military prior to this. I mean, some guys were head pros at shops prior to this. Some guys were, some guys worked at GM prior to this. I mean, they had a lot of them. This is their retirement. I mean, they're done. And this is, like you. I mean, they wouldn't have to do this. They want to do this, and they enjoy doing this. And that's why they're so good at this.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you have somebody who's doing this because this is they've had their previous life. Now this is maybe their fun life.
Is fun.
This is fun. Yeah, and that's what they're doing now. So. But anyway, James, I want to thank you for joining me for this podcast. I want to thank you for being part of this. And I'm sure we'll do some more in the future. But
my pleasure.
I'm going to let you go real fast because you'll have another 4,000 calls to answer.
Yeah, I got one or two. I can hear the phone ringing right now.
It's that time of year, so love it. So fill those schools up, get them going. So anyway, thanks for being part of this, and we'll get you guys, and we'll talk to you guys real soon out there.